Hello, my name is Tabia Love, and this is my presentation for Gen X, the lost generation for casino marketing. This one was a little challenging because, as the title says, lost generation for casino marketing. So there wasn't really a lot of research to pull from. So I hope you enjoy. Who are the Generation X? Generation X, are also known as Gen X, are also known as Gen Xers, are born between 1965 and 1980. Gen Xers are born between the baby boomer generation and the millennials, so they bridge the gap between the two generations. Gen Xers make up a smaller portion of the population than baby boomers or millennials. Roughly 20% of the population Generation X make up. In the 1990s, Gen X was largely written off as a bunch of white meat slackers. Gen X grew up during a transitional time in our society. As latchkey kids, they were raised amid rising divorce rates and violence. They were forced to take responsibility for raising themselves, so they are less tradition bound than any other generation. Most are highly educated, and they are skeptical of anything approaching conventional or slick advertising. Thus, different marketing tactics are required to reach and persuade them. Gen Xers work to live rather than live to work. Gen Xers typically have two main drivers: a desire to provide for their families and a desire to take care of themselves. As the slide shows, out of the three generations that are most talked about, the baby boomer generation, the Generation Xers, and the millennial generation, Gen X make up the smallest segment of the population, the neglected middle child. Gen Xers are now juggling childcare, home ownership, and reaching the peak of their careers. Think of the 40-year-old who went to high school in the 80s and hated the first Bush era and is now working in green energy and has little kids to contend with. This generation remembers how video killed the radio star and are more pessimistic about having enough money to retire. Because this generation remembers, the most important point for casino marketing to remember when dealing with Generation Xers is understanding that this is the first generation to grow up with television. So they have been immersed in advertising and marketing almost from birth and are thus inherently aware when they're being marketed to and distrustful of any who try. Honesty and authenticity will go a long way with this demographic of our society. Generation X has essentially fallen off the radar among marketeers. They are often referred to as the slacker generation or the forgotten middle child. For Generation X youth, baby boomers sucked up all the oxygen in the room, dominating their political, educational, business, and social arenas. Gen Xers are always under the shadow of baby boomers. This cultural backdrop has defined a work hard, play hard generation that is now at the pinnacle of their careers. Many of them are homeowners and have families of their own. So there they sit with this powerful time, with money, resources, and influence, and they still are in the mainstream casino marketing conversation. We've watched the culture interests shift from boomers to millennials, like we're a flyover state. To reference this slide, this is how Generation X feel. To give you some context, in 2012, when it was said that a popular meteorologist called Mississippi the landmass in between Louisiana and Alabama, we thought that the entire state of Mississippi was overlooked. Now we know that was just fake news, and Mississippi was never referred to as the landmass in between Louisiana and Alabama, but the story stuck. That's how Generation X feel. Like gaming marketers are treating them like a flyover between baby boomers and millennials. If you look at the numbers, Generation X is the best generation of them all. Generation X poses the best characteristics of both boomers and millennials. Generation X also generates 31% of total U.S. income and outspends all other generations when it comes to housing, clothing, eating out, and entertainment. And Generation X is 66 million strong. Gen Xers spend 1/3 more annually than the celebrated millennials. Today, approximately 82% of Gen Xers gamble each year in some form, and they are much more open to social bets and online gambling than the generations before them. During their childhood, several states legalized lotteries, and for the first time, gambling was available outside of Las Vegas. In 1988, Congress passed the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, and within a few years, 40 states had tribal casinos. Atlantic City became a casino empire throughout the 1980s and 90s, just as the Generation X kids were growing up. Horse racing declined rapidly because Gen Xers had so many other gambling options that weren't available to their parents. Sports betting was also popular when they were growing up, but by 1992, the only place that it was offered was Nevada. Recent research by SingGrid found that 92% of Generation X respondents in their study had used email in the last month, more than any other generation. And 80% of Gen Xers name email as their preferred means of brand messaging. And like Jan Brady, that's a Brady Bunch reference, Gen X often feel ignored. In fact, 54% of Gen Xers find it frustrating that marketers overlook them. Gen Xers are busy. They're dealing with children, paying mortgages and tuitions, and working a lot. Turns out they're also online. More than 80% of this generation reports that they're on Facebook, MySpace, which I verified, it is still active, Instagram, Twitter, and other social media platforms. They are more on par with technology adoption and use with millennials and are more likely to be politically loyal throughout their lives than either of the other generations. Gen Xers claim to be the most dedicated to lists while shopping, but also fessed up to making the most unplanned purchases on their shopping excursions. This generation is our true hybrid when it comes to marketing. They grew up without an online shopping experience, so they still enjoy a trip to the store, but have fully embraced online shopping as well. Is it really important to know about age difference amongst your gaming customers? Only if you want to keep customers of all ages coming back. Player development is an important goal of any gaming establishment, and repeat business is required to meet this goal. Gambling is a form of entertainment enjoyed by adults of all ages. While much research has been conducted on gambling behavior, research on the topic of gambling behavior in specific age groups is quite limited. It is really important to know about age differences amongst your gaming customers. In order to increase intent to return, it is important to be knowledgeable about each segment of your target market. So how do you get this knowledge? Knowledge comes from two sources: experience and science. What can be done so that Generation X don't feel like they're forgotten? Well, Robert Coppola, the vice president for advanced products at game company Aristocrat, said we need to carve out these spaces on gaming floors that cater to certain demographics, themed a certain way, rather than just throwing something in the middle of a slot floor, hoping that the person will stumble across it. Also, we need to keep experiences separate. Marcus Yoder, vice president of business development for regulated markets at Glendale-based Gambit Gaming, said in a discussion, I think the best approach is create a gaming space with a bar. Don't put a gaming space in the bar. Yoder said, our operation tried that 4 different times and they failed. They completely failed. And it's going back to that idea of, hey, if I'm in a casino, I'm doing my flirting time, my walking time, my shopping time, my gambling time, and my drinking time. And a lot of times you want to be in different space for all of that. Make gameplay creative. Video games are popular, and those are a possible way to attract new gamblers. Yoder said that they have a Pac-Man Battle Royale multiplayer game based on the classic arcade franchise where players put money in to win virtual points. He said his company made a similar version of that game and allowed winners to come away with money rather than points. We also can make better marketing strategies. Mike Trask, Director of Marketing and Product Management for Ainsworth Games and Technologies, said he travels to hundreds of casinos per year and the marketing is remarkably similar wherever he goes. We are all talking to people in the same way again and again and again. Trask said he said promotions tend to focus on the same things to draw people in, such as free play, earning points for prizes that guests may or may not want, and dining specials. Trask said that people who market casino gaming will need to find a way to be engaged, be authentic, and to be themselves in order to attract different demographics. Send them useful messages via the channels that actually matter to them. So you can email them, reach out to them on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, use some of the social media platforms that Generation X utilize. But don't forget about Generation X. Coppola said the generation before baby boomers might be known as the silent generation, but he thinks Generation X is the really silent generation and one that gaming and casino marketers shouldn't ignore. He said these people kind of have one foot in both worlds. They grew up with technology and video games and mobile phones, yet they're older and they have more discretionary income. Coppola said they've evolved in terms of their life stage, that they don't want the super social experience. They're not going to nightclubs. They still want to do things and go out rather than trying to figure out what a 25-year-old wants. What does a 40-year-old want? I think that's a better way to frame the issue, Coppola said. We also need to reward their loyalty. Gen Xers like loyalty programs, and the primary drivers are to save money and to receive awards for purchases they make. In a recent study about loyalty, More than 88% of Gen Xers join loyalty programs to save money, with the rewards coming in a close second at 71%. The National Business Research Institute was recently asked to conduct survey research for a large hotel and casino chain in order to gain knowledge of their customers from various age groups. This research revealed that different factors drive overall satisfaction and intent to return in older and younger customers. For customers between the age of 21 and 45, overall satisfaction was driven by customers' perceptions of the fairness of the comps earned based from play for the gaming rewards program. The perceived quality of the food and beverage offered in the hotel and casino restaurants was a second driving force of overall satisfaction. Intent to return for these customers was driven by the perception of a good mix of slot machine denominations, and these customers also want a casino where their gambling budget lasts longer. Generation Xers are a force to be reckoned with. They have huge buying power and influence over other generations and are expected to live longer than boomers. Brands and marketers should not gloss over this generation and need to understand that this group is maturing. They want to be heard, not forgotten, and marketers should do well to pay attention. I came across this article that I thought was pretty interesting. It says 10 tips to reach Generation X in 2018. It's 10 ideas written by millennials to reach the forgotten middle child between millennials and boomers, the Generation Xers. So it says social media, Facebook games. It says Gen X adults 35 to 49 were found to spend an average of 6 hours 58 minutes a week on social media networks, compared to 6 hours 19 minutes for millennials. Nostalgic advertisement and sponsorships. Apple typically outperforms their competitors because their campaigns evoke an emotional response from people, appealing to their heart and not to their head. Radio. 97% of Generation X listen to the radio monthly. Radio is a leading marketing platform, reaching more than 93% of Americans monthly. Billboards. Since Generation Xers travel a lot, billboards are an easy, efficient way to market to them. This is one of the most popular methods of outside television advertising. It catches their eye as they drive or when they're bored waiting in traffic in their daily commute. They usually see it many times they cannot forget it. I know, like Trent said, going on I-10 headed toward Louisiana, there's a stretch where there are nothing but casino billboards. The Beau Rivage has like 8 billboards in a row right in Gulfport, Mississippi. Groupon, they said Generation Xers are always looking for a special discount. So Groupon would be the place to go if you're looking for a discount on vacation packages, looking for a discount on a haircut, or to get your nails done. Jingles or other examples of sonic branding will bring up nostalgia and a sense of familiarity, and they will feel an emotional connection to it. The point of sale. Have you ever pumped gas and at the gas pump it had a TV screen in it? Well, what if we could put some casino commercials in there, or advertisements for our casinos in that? Television commercials. Generation X, known for their nostalgia and loyalty, has shown this through their choice of entertainment. Also known as the MTV generation, still prefer live TV over online TV. And if your target market is this generation, have a nostalgic commercial to bring them back to their childhood may increase their desire to purchase from you. Or in this case, bring a nostalgic commercial back or a nostalgic game back, and then they might come play with you. Print advertisement. Like I stated earlier, it said Generation X love to get mail, so send them mail. But they also like email, and so if you can do a tie-in with email and print mail, then you should turn out great. It says statistics show that 92% of Generation X view their email regularly, which one of the highest. According to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority Generational Report, millennials and Gen Xers made up a combined 64% of visitors to Vegas in 2014. They were also the least likely to play the slots or a hand of blackjack during their stay. While 71% of visitors report that they gambled while in Vegas, that figure dropped to 68% for Gen Xers and 63% for millennials. Among those who did play, millennials also averaged the least amount of time gambling and budgeted the least money, over $200 less than the overall average of $530.11 per trip. So, in conclusion, I just want to state a couple facts. So I'm going to start with Gen Xers, even though they're the most overlooked generation, generates 31% of the total U.S. income and outspends all other generations when it comes to housing, clothing, eating out, and entertainment. And that's just the beginning. Gen Xers possesses the best marketing characteristics of both boomers and millennials. They're social savvy, 81% of them have Facebook accounts, and still understand the value of traditional media. Best of all, Generation Xers are quick to adopt new technologies. They did create the internet after all, or at least shaped it into what it's become today. In spite of all these desirable consumer behaviors, Gen X isn't feeling the love. 54% are frustrated that brands consistently ignore them. And this oversight is a mistake. Consumers And again, my name is Tabia Love. I'm a Generation Xer, and thank you for following along and listening to my presentation. And I hope y'all have a good night.